So we heard now a lot about geopolitical hotspots. We heard about Venezuela, we heard about Ukraine as well, Crimea, and of course Serbia. And the Repублike Srpske will now be aimed by those fake and color revolutions. I think very soon we have also Belarus as a country which might be aimed very soon. And it is interesting to see what organizations, what foundations and NGOs play a role. We had the wonderful short informative movie about Otpor, but I want now to talk about the influence and the work of German foundations and German NGOs, because it's not just US American taxpayers' money which is financing those fake revolutions, it is as well also my taxpayers' money or the taxpayers' money of the Germans. So it is good to compare Syria and the Repублike Srpske because we find the same actors, we find the same foundations working as well as in Syria and the environment of the so-called revolution there and also in the Repублike Srpske. The only difference right now between Repублike Srpske and Syria is that Syria is almost destroyed, more than 100,000 people are dead, and a huge movement of refugees inside the country and outside the country, and it will not stop very soon. So to know about so-called non-governmental organizations, it is good to look what are the governmental organizations saying about them. And I will quote now from the German Foreign Ministry. This is an official statement about the German view on Bosnia and Herzegovina. So they write, "Today Germany is one of Bosnia and Herzegovina's most important foreign policy partners. Bosnia and Herzegovina sees Germany as one of its principal advocates in Europe and as a supporter of the local reform process and of efforts to move the country closer to the European Union and NATO." So this is not a conspiracy theory, this is the official statement. And it goes on, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, the Friedrich Ebert Foundation and the Heinrich Böll Foundation all have their own offices in Sarajevo. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom also has a small representation there. The political foundations are engaged in a multitude of projects. So this means our foundations, the party foundations, finance a big number of NGOs here in your country. So just to say, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation is the political foundation of the government party in Germany, of the Merkel Party, of the Christian Democratic Union. The Friedrich Ebert Foundation is the foundation of the Social Democrats, of the Social Democratic Party. The Heinrich Böll Foundation is the foundation of the Green Party. So we have already now the three maybe most important political mainstream parties in Germany who are governing our country since decades. And the Friedrich Naumann Foundation is the foundation of the Liberal Party. But when we look what is the agenda of those foundations, what political agenda do they share, are there differences in the agenda, we can say, I can summarize what about all the political work is, especially in foreign countries. So we can say it's at first the promotion of so-called human rights, but this term human rights has a very blurry meaning. It's not very specific. So what they have in common is, for example, that they criticize death penalty in Iran as well as in China, but almost never in the United States of America. So we have the so-called promoting of democracy or of their understanding of democracy. But when democracy takes place, like at the referendum on Crimea or the referendum in Switzerland against mass immigration, then all of a sudden those foundations don't share anymore their support for democracy. Then it's wrong. We have the agenda, they are against so-called nationalism, but not when it's a nationalism for the so-called nation building, for artificial states. So we have right now the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina that those foundations who fight generally against nationalism support a sort of artificial Bosnian nationalism. And I was often enough in this country that I know it's very hard to find a Bosnian nationalist. It's almost impossible. So they support as well gay rights and gender mainstreaming. And of course to oppose to so-called traditional and family values. And maybe a short additional information. The Femen, you know the group Femen, I think everybody knows of you group this is. There's in Germany as well a female group, and the head of the German female group is member of the Conservative Party, of the CDU, of the Merkel Party, and a couple of weeks ago she said while a discussion that the family model, father, mother and children, of course the children from the same people and so on, is a fascist model which should be destroyed. It's not a joke, we are laughing, but these people might make laws in future. So, and also of course other topics like ecology, activism against sexism, and of course activism against fascism. This is very important, but at the same time these people support, for example, in Ukraine, Svoboda and the hooligans of the right sector. So you see there's in this geopolitical conflict, it's very, very double-faced and double standards. And in this geopolitical war, Germany is playing a very decisive role because those NGOs are, and those foundations are a sort of geopolitical cavalry in this fight called soft power. These are sort of network wars. Groups are supported like Otpor, and they are, media are supported, radio stations are supported, internet, TV, and so on. And all these German political foundations, although they are from different political parties, share the same Western transatlanticist agenda. There's no difference that one, for example, the Social Democrats have another agenda than the Conservatives. They all share the same agenda. Of course, they cover different groups in the countries where they are active. So these foundations are the big battleships of soft power, the big German battleships of soft power. Of course, they don't act on behalf of German national interest. They act on behalf of Washington, of NATO, of Brussels, what they consider as their interest. And we can say as well that the N in NGO, the non-governmental organization, that the N is the big lie of this term, because this is nothing else than an additional arm, like an octopus of the foreign policy of the foreign ministry, but camouflaged as that what is called civil society. So also these organizations are active in Syria, and they were active for a long time in the Middle East until today. And they cover at least 3 topics long before the war broke out in 2011. And these topics are destabilization, provocation, and this is now the most important point and the most important topic they work in, it's disinformation. And I think we see all these 3 terms, destabilization, provocation, and also disinformation as well here in the Repублike Srpske and in Bosnia in general, but also when it comes to Serbia, to Kosovo, where I have been 3 weeks ago for some days. So that the information you get when you go personally there has nothing to do with the information which is spread by those NGOs. So one could ask, why is Germany so important when it comes to the Middle East? And why is Germany so important when it especially comes to Syria? And the answer is given by a US-American writer and philosopher. His name is Paul Berman. Maybe a couple of you know him. I think you know him. I'm pretty much sure. Paul Berman. He wrote 10 years ago a book. The title of the book was Terror and Liberalism. And he said one sentence in this book which is very important. He said, the whole of the Arabic world has been overwhelmed by German philosophies from long ago, the philosophies of revolutionary nationalism and totalitarianism translated into Muslim dialects. Let the Germans go door to door throughout the region, issuing a product recall. So this is exactly what we Germans are doing right now, what our government is doing right now. It sends the agents like a door-to-door trader to all those countries and tries desperately to call back our own German philosophies and replace them by that what we can call the Western Atlanticist liberal value system, postmodernist value system. And when we look what are those foundations doing when it comes to Syria, and I just brought a couple of examples concerning the Adenauer Foundation, Ebert Foundation, and the Böll Foundation from the 3 big political parties. So we can say that the Adenauer Foundation, I want to say again, it's the foundation of the so-called Christian Democratic Party in Germany. So they do events when it is about to cover the Syrian events. They do events where they invite so-called experts to debate about the war in Syria. They invite, of course, journalists, so they report about this. And if you go there, you can see that those experts deny that there's a certain
persecution of Christians by Islamists in Syria. A thing what takes place every day. Christians are beheaded just because of their religious belief is denied by the foundation of the Christian party in Germany. You have the calling for an international intervention. International intervention, by the way, when it's said in the West, it never means an intervention done by the Russians. It, of course, is international is a camouflage word for Western, for NATO. So we have that they deny the character of the conflict, and they are still claiming that it is about democracy and freedom in Syria, although everybody who knows about the conflict knows as well that it had from the beginning a sectarian, a very hardcore sectarian impact by so-called Salafi groups. And I want to remember that the same Adenauer Foundation is the foundation which is right now active. Maybe it was said already in the speech before me. The Adenauer Foundation is the spin doctor of the Klitschko party in Ukraine. The Klitschko party is trained, financed, and sponsored by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Germany. So it's a product, if we want to say it like that. But the Friedrich Ebert Foundation of the Social Democrats is doing as well in Syria. They are, for example, they are saying that the Syrian government lost any credibility they put in their statements. Of course, the Syrian government lost credibility in the West, but not by its own citizens, and its own citizens are the ones who should elect it. So, but these are just some little elements. And when it comes to Bosnia, this is interesting what the Friedrich Ebert Foundation is saying when it comes to that topic. So they have an analyst there, the name is Tanja Topic from, she's well known, but I want just to tell what she was saying lately about the existence of the Repублike Srpske. She said, experience tells us that in our region, those in power, rely on the constant creation of enemies and traitors. This is what I think you are doing right now, the creation of enemies and traitors, with the goal of disparaging and discrediting all those who think differently. According to them, it is essential to create a homogenized and patriotic national identity and to direct all anger against local traitors and foreign mercenaries. So you see, it's again about, national identity. It's against the natural national identity of the Serb population here to be replaced by the artificial Bosnian identity, or we are all humans, or whatever. So why should the work, I'm almost at the end. Almost at the end. Why should we take this serious? By the way, I was not reading now the Böll Foundation. This is from the Green Party, but it's the same thing as well. They are very much engaged in Syria by supporting the so-called popular uprising. And until today, they give the impression that there are not Islamist militants walking around in Syria and killing Christians. Until today, you could believe that there are some young hipsters, left-wing liberal intellectuals who drink a coffee latte in the streets of Damascus and are a little bit protesting on Facebook. This is the impression they give until today about this genocide, what is right now going on in Syria, because it is done, of course, by their own side. And in Bosnia, the same stands. So there's, if you look on the documents, when it comes to to Bosnia and Herzegovina and to the Republic of Srpska, you read about the danger of the Republic, of the existence of the Republic of Srpska, and the danger that this might become a role model, for example, for the Serbs in Kosovo, that they might have the wish to unite against the Albanian majority. So there you are considered as a danger, and the danger should be avoided, or at least made less dangerous. So why should we take serious what NGOs are doing? We could say, well, yes, they talk a lot of wrong stuff, and it might not have any consequences. The problem is that those NGOs can influence real politics very, very much. I was wondering in the past, when it came to Syria, what is our own secret service doing? Why are politicians not waiting and asking for real information from the battleground before they react? Why do they react directly on a press release of the NGO? I have a last example for you. So you see, it might sound a little bit funny for you when you hear it now, but you have to remember that we are speaking about Germany, Europe's biggest economy, maybe the strongest and most important country of the European Union, and how easy it is to influence the politics as long you are from a very, very nice presented NGO. So we had in June 2011, long ago already, 4 years almost, we had a press release from the German Foreign Ministry. I have to tell you that this press release, I will quote now, is actual until today. Like this, how I read it now, you can read it today. I was checking today in the morning. On June 6, in 2011, the well-known Syrian blogger Amina Abdallah was apparently abducted by the Syrian security services in Damascus. Since then, there has been no sign of her. Amina Abdallah wrote openly in her blog about her longing for a Syria what was more open and free. Markus Löning, the federal government commissioner for human rights policy, today made the following statement on her disappearance. And now I quote Markus Löning. He worked in the German Foreign Ministry under the last German government. The obvious kidnapping, please listen very well to the words, the obvious kidnapping of Amina Abdallah was exposed, the general amnesty declared by President Assad himself only a few days ago and expressly intended to apply to political prisoners as a sham. The Syrian people are still waiting in vain for earnest radical reform. I call upon the Syrian leadership to cease forthwith this repression of the civilian population and to release Amina Abdallah immediately. The Syrian people's right to freedom of expression, a right claimed by Amina Abdallah herself, must be respected by the Syrian government without exceptions. Amina Abdallah was a fake. This person never existed. This person was a fake of a US-American student located in Edinburgh, in Scotland. The case was a fake, but the press release is, until today, you can read. If you don't know about the background, you would think it is like that. I was researching by that time. I was wondering, how can this be that my government reacts so quick on such a course? I called in the foreign ministry and I was told there, they got the information of several NGOs and they had the feeling that they had to react very quick on that case. So you see how easy it is to manipulate an 80 million people country in the center of Europe, the most powerful economy and maybe most influential country in the European Union. So you see that the information war carried out by NGOs should be taken very seriously, and I think this is what might be to expect also in the Republika Srpska. And when we look now that the Republika Srpska has already the reputation of let me say it like this, like a geopolitical underdog in the Balkan area, when you read in the media. So it could be expected that here a so-called uprising, a so-called color revolution, or a so-called fake revolution might start very soon. I thank you so much. I hope it wasn't too long. Hvala lepo. Danke schön.